Hello and welcome to Velocity Talks. My name is Christopher Durham and I'm the president of the Velocity Institute. This is my regular opportunity to talk to a lot of cool people in the private brand industry, the movers and shakers, as we like to say. Today, I'm excited to welcome Dean Cook from Sofidel. Dean, welcome. It's great to have you on the show.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me on.
Very good. Well, Dean, let's start with you. So tell us a little bit about who Dean is.
Okay. Currently live in North Texas and outside of the Dallas area, but grew up in South Texas. Spent most of my life there. I started my career in South Texas working at a local grocery store when I was 15 years old. So that was quite a good learning experience looking back now, just because you learn so much about on the retail side that helps us now on the business side. So anyway, yes.
And I get the privilege to actually meet Dean because we just returned from Austin, Texas from our
Yes.
sustainability summit. Dean was there. Literally, we flew in yesterday morning. So tell us about Sofidel.
In the US, Sofidel's been around a little over 10 years. We have several manufacturing plants across the country, make nothing but private label for the retail consumer. We also have an away from home side of the business. So they work with restaurants, cruise lines, back of house.
Mm-hmm.
The company started out with an acquisition out of Florida, and then that grew into, we have two plants that were greenfield plants, one in Circleville, Ohio, one in Inola, Oklahoma. And then we have other plants in Las Vegas, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and Green Bay, Wisconsin. And those help us service our various retail customers across the country.
So let's make sure we get the product in too. So what do you make?
You already know what I'm talking about. So bath tissue, kitchen towels, that's our number one. Number two, we also do napkins and facial tissue on the retail side. On the away from home side, I'm not as familiar with because I'm not in that piece of the business.
That's okay.
But everything you think of back of house, the large jumbo reels of bath tissue, industrial kitchen towels, napkins, that would pretty much cover the bigger piece of the away from home side of the business.
So the last few years must have been pretty exciting with COVID and all.
Yes.
You were the star of the show, or the unhappy out of stock of the show.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was interesting. So I got a call from a retail customer in Texas, and they said, "Hey, what's going on with bath tissue and kitchen towels? Are you guys don't have product?" And we were caught. No, we have plenty of product. What's going on? And they said, "Well, customers are just coming in and wiping out our shelves." And obviously that became the trend. That went on for about 12 months, give or take. And what we found retailers asking for is, look, we want to just be in stock. So we would determine, it was varied by customer, but speaking for the customers that I worked with, we would fine tune it to their number one, number two, maybe number three, and number four SKU.
Yeah.
And say, look, we're just going to make this, produce this, and ship it to you so you're able to keep your customers happy. There were literally stores that would get a load of inventory in, and then the shelves would be wiped out within a day or two. And that flow of trucks and product and delivery just kept flowing and flowing. So yes, it was a weird period of time. And I go back to what I said at the beginning is there was really a reason. There was never a shortage of paper products.
Right.
There was a perception in the marketplace that drove that. But I will say, and we may talk about this a little bit later, what we gained out of that, we gained some consumers and we gained some consumer confidence. So where they weren't able to pick up the branded product, because all we do is own brand or private label, they were able to pick up products that maybe they were unfamiliar with, maybe a price point, and we had some confusion out of that. So
you had forced trial. They were all out. One of our grocery stores, a big one, a national chain, limits, and then they had someone in the aisle who was making sure the limits were enforced.
Right. It's a crazy sight when you see that. You're limiting the number of sales that can go out the door. It's usually unheard of in a retail environment. Usually you want to sell as much as you can, as fast as you can.
So I'm curious, because I've talked to a couple of manufacturers about this, and I don't know that there is a right or wrong answer, but prior to COVID, there was very much a just-in-time manufacturing mentality, right? It was very much, I only want to pay for as much as I need right now, and we'll worry about the rest of it later. Has that evolved coming out of it? Are we seeing them hold more inventory? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and paper is unique because it takes up so much space.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And I would say for us, again, it varies by customer and the size of the customer. But where they can, some customers have pared down their SKU offerings. where they may have had, and I'll just give a broad statement or say 12 SKUs on private
Mhm.
label bath tissue and towels. They may have cut it down to 8 because they realized that they didn't need 12 SKUs. They could survive off of 8. And so they're holding power in their warehouse and holding power in the back room. Instead of holding 12 SKUs, now they're holding 8. So they have
Right.
more of what they're actually moving through. So I would say that was maybe one of the benefits that came out of it, is that the the lower moving SKUs, the lower velocity SKUs just got weeded out of the business. And I would say, again, it varies by customer, but you've seen that trend continue. And we've noticed that with the national brands too.
Mhm.
Some of the SKUs have kept cut back from what they had on the national level. And it does help the customer, the retailer, hold more inventory and be able to service their customer better in the long run.
Yeah, particularly in that category, you got to wonder because we are, and I think not unlike a lot of Americans, we'll shop Aldi one week and then one of the major grocers another week. Here it's Kroger or it's Harris Teeter Publix typically, and Aldi carries like 4 SKUs of
Right.
toilet paper.
Exactly.
It might be two more, I don't remember. And Harris Teeter Publix carries, I don't even know, an aisle. Right? There's a lot.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Aldi doesn't seem to be hurting by.
And I would say, just as a general statement, and again, just talking about private label, even though
Mhm.
they have cut back on SKUs, you're still seeing growth. You're seeing a growth across the category. Some of that could be conversion, customers who maybe didn't shop the category before. Growing up, to me, private label was a black and white label, and it was just stuck
Yeah.
on the shelf, and it wasn't something. It was more of a price entry into the category. And now we're looking at equal to or better than the brand, depending on the product. And that's what the retailers are asking for, and that's what the consumers are looking for. And at the end of the day, hopefully, you're getting a better price point. So you're getting a product as good as the brand, but at a better price point. Especially now, because we see consumers way more conscious of how much of their basket is going towards the necessities because of they have maybe fewer dollars to spend.
We've bought, we pretty much exclusively buy private brand toilet paper and paper towels. And the only place I even remember recently even getting something that I was like, was my wife brought home some dollar store stuff. And she was like, I don't like this. I'm like, you paid $1 for it. What do you expect?
Yeah, the value versus what you paid for it. No, I
Probably for the dollar, you got a good deal for this. It's just you
right.
want, so that is what it is. So let's talk about the year ahead. What does your business look like? What do you guys have going on?
We're always looking at ways to improve our products. That's not only consumer driven or retail driven, but we're looking at where can we do some innovation? Where do we have something that can differentiate us from our competitors? So I would say that's going to continue as we go into 2024 and beyond. Expansion. We did make a recent announcement that we're adding some capacity out of our Circleville, Ohio plant, bringing on a new paper machine, and that's going to allow us more capacity to meet the consumer needs, the retailer needs. And I would say that's the two biggest pieces of the business. And
Mhm.
quite honestly, just continuing to service the customers we have and grow the business we have that's more of our outlook for 2024.
So we just came out of Sustainability Summit, and I know you guys have a lot of paper as your world. So if you're not
Right.
sustainable, you're probably not efficient, honestly.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about what Sofidel's doing there.
Okay. First of all, we don't do any recycled. So everything we do is virgin paper, FSC certified. We have looked at paper
So
wrap.
for those who don't know, FSC is Forestry Stewardship
Yes. Yes.
Council. So there is an association council out there making sure that folks like Sofidel are treating our forest.
Yes. Yeah. Responsible sourcing for sure.
Mm,
And we're looking at, we've had a paper wrap that we've done outside of the US. And that was launched with a retailer, I believe it was in the UK, called Nikki. And so we do a bath tissue and a paper towel. We've worked with a few customers in the US trying to get that onboarded. A national brand did recently come out with the paper wrapped paper
mhm.
product just because it breaks down a lot quicker in the landfill
Right.
versus poly. Um, as you PCR on the poly, that's really been a bigger talking point. There are some national retailers that are requiring that going forward in 2024. So we're working with that. I think the challenge there is we know we can move into it. It's the availability in the marketplace. I think if everyone switches to PCR, PR, too soon, it's come down to availability. And there's a little bit of a cost adjustment there too. It does have a little bit more of a higher cost, but that's something we see a need that to move into going forward from a sustainability standpoint.
Yeah, and we presented some industry research here at the conference that pretty
Right.
much jives with what you're saying there.
Exactly.
That'll
Yeah.
you'll be able to watch it on YouTube here probably next week,
Yeah.
but it's saying exactly what you just said.
And it was spot on. We want to move into it as quickly as possible. Again, the challenge is having the availability of the raw materials in the marketplace. And that's going to be for all suppliers because it's not just Sofidel. We have competitors in the marketplace that service these same retailers, and they're going to be asked the same questions.
Yeah, essentially, if Walmart and Kroger went to 100%, there wouldn't be enough material right now.
Exactly. You named the retailer. I didn't want to name the retailers, but yes.
They're just so big, it's not hard to figure that out. They sell a lot of stuff, you know,
Yes,
it just
yeah.
kind of is what it is.
Exactly.
No big secrets there. So let's talk about the future, because I always like to ask the future looking questions. And I think we discussed it a little while ago, but typically I'll say the last 50 years of private brand have been about building our muscles to make national brand equivalents, right? We're really good at copying things, but the next 50 years have to be about something more. We don't lose that muscle, but there's something else, right?
And I think it's where can you be innovative? Where can you work with? And sometimes it's retailer driven, sometimes it's supplier driven.
Mhm.
But what are some opportunities in the marketplace that maybe the brands haven't touched on yet, or maybe they've barely touched on it and you can expand on it? I don't really want to get into any specifics, but I
Oh
would say,
no, don't give away any trade secrets.
right. But what I'm thinking about is how can you work with a national retailer and develop a product that's not in the marketplace today?
Mhm.
In private brands, that really wasn't going on 20 years ago. You were just
No.
basically, again, a product with a wrap and it was an entry price level. So not to say that this is still going to be a better price point, but it's going to be what can you offer? And I'm repeating myself here, but what can you offer to the end consumer, to the end user that's not in the marketplace today? I think that's where we see an opportunity because you're not only building your confidence with the retailers you're working with, but then you're able to drive new business within the category that everyone's always looking for. How can you drive the business outside of your standard SKUs today?
Yeah, I think that's the Holy Grail, right? We're certainly seeing it on the food side. There's specialty foods. We went and walked HEB, and they have so much interesting stuff that's unique to Texas, and they're
Right.
bringing in different, flavors, and it's just really cool. So, how do you translate that into what you do and onto the paper side? I don't know what that means, but there has to be a way to do it in the next 10 years, 5 years. I don't know.
And it could be a combination of innovation tied into sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
How can you marry those two up and bring the consumer or bring the retailer so them go to the end user, the consumer that's not out there today? And I think that that's a challenge, but I definitely feel that that's something that we can excel at over time.
Absolutely. I think the next generations are going to demand it. It's coming. It should be exciting to see what happens there. Cool. So we always close up with the same 5 questions. So we'll start with, what's your favorite word?
Okay. And I thought a lot about this one. I would have to say persistence. And the reason for that is I can so many times and going back to early on in my career, I have a tendency of when I'm told I can't do something, then I try to find a way to do it, try to make it happen. And so I would say persistence is one that I probably even to this day I live. I don't like being told I can't do something. Right? I try to figure out, or something cannot be done. I said, well, sure, there's a way to get it done. You just have to be persistent and figure out how to make it happen.
Absolutely. That's why I like to tell people that sometimes it's not about great ideas, it's about execution. And
Right?
are you the one that's going to be persistent enough to get it done?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Question number 2. Are you a more artistic person or a more mathematic person?
Definitely mathematics. The way I say it, and even to do this in business today, and I going back and through my career again, the numbers don't lie. If you're analyzing the numbers for your business, even in your personal life, it's just that when you're looking at your budget, at the end of the day, the numbers are what they are, and so I always live by mathematics, and just that's I'm definitely not artistic. Definitely cannot do. I would love to play the guitar or do something with some painting, but that's not in me at all.
No worries. If you could share a meal with anyone, past or present, living or dead, who would it be and why?
So for that one, I would have to say my grandfather. He passed away at an early age, But I can remember young, and I would say up till I was about 12 years old. 'Cause I think that's how it was when he passed away. He was a hard worker. He didn't have an education, but he provided well for his family. He owned three real estate properties and did very well for himself. But it was all done through hard work. So I would love to be able to sit down with him now as older, understand a little bit more about life, and say, how did you do that? What were you thinking? And because I know he was a hard worker, so that would be who I would go back and want to sit down and have a meal with, would be my grandfather.
Number 4, what profession other than your own would you have liked to have attempted?
So for me, that's an easy one. It would be real estate. When I was again, and I didn't really touch on this very much in the beginning, but when I was 19 years old, I had a buddy that I worked with, and we grew up together. And we said, I think it'd be really neat to go buy this broken down house. And what's really bad now is you see so many home rebuilding shows on TV. It's kind of overdone.
Yeah.
We had this great idea, and this is going back, 30 years or plus. And we were like, hey, let's buy this house, let's fix it up and either rent it out or sell it. The problem was the bank wouldn't give us the money. We were we barely had income. We were both working at the grocery store, and it never happened. But I like the idea of taking something that's broken and fixing it up, and either keeping it and renting it out or building up real estate. So that would be a passion that I would have.
I think that would be fun too. Finally, number 5, if you could speak to yourself at the beginning of your career, what advice would you give yourself?
There's some obvious that I'm sure you've heard this before, investing in certain ways, but outside of that is enjoy what you're doing. Don't let time get away from you. I think a lot of times, I look back, and I was with Coca-Cola for 14 years, and we did a lot of fun stuff that was work related. I don't know that I really enjoyed it because I was so involved in trying to make things happen. That would be number one. The number two is, just because someone tells you something cannot be done, I guess in a way this kind of goes back to persistence, doesn't mean that it cannot be done. Whenever, again, going back to early in my career, I was working at a grocery store. I quit my job and started a candy manufacturing company. And they thought I was nuts. He was like, what are you doing?
Was it a nut candy manufacturer?
No, it was cotton candy and some popcorn and other things. So what happened was I took this company, I built it literally from the ground up, rented out a building behind the grocery store I worked at, turned it into a manufacturing facility, got a tortilla company of all things to be my distributor because they were going to all the stores where I wanted my stuff, built racks to go in, and every step along the way, my friends were like, because I lived in this very small town. They were like, what are you doing? Why do you keep doing, why are you doing this? Long story short, I sold the business to the tortilla company. And to this day, they still make the product and sell it at the communities down south. And I was able to turn that money into buying a franchise and doing that for a while. And all of those things brings me to where I'm at today, that when you're working with anything in business, you want to understand everything from the ground up. And if I would have listened along the way, and I can go into way more details of where I was told you probably shouldn't do that, or it's probably not a good idea to do that. If you're passionate about it and it's something you feel in your heart that it's the right decision, you're not always going to be right. Lord knows I made a lot of mistakes. But if I would listen to everybody, I might still be working at a grocery store as a grocery manager today, which isn't a bad thing, but I don't think that's the career I would have chosen for myself.
You may have heard my wife tell the story in Austin, but essentially I started writing a blog 15 years ago because I didn't like my job at the time and thought, we'll try this. And I said, one day you'll have quit your job and we'll all be doing this and this will be our company. And she laughed at me and she goes, it'll never happen. Never happen.
Here we are today, right?
Here we are today, right?
Yeah. And I have 3 kiddos. I have one in middle school, one out of school. She has special needs. She lives with us, and one in med school. And my son in med school, all through high school, he said, I want to go to college. I'm going to be pre-med. And I can remember along the way, people telling him, it's going to be tough. You may want to think about something else. And then he's in college, and there's, I think, 120 other students in his program. And they said, only about 10% of you are going to make it to the end. And guess what? There was 12 people in his program at the end that made it.
Wow.
But the whole point is, I'd like to think it was good parenting or good genes somewhere along the way that helped him along the way. But it just goes back to, you can always get good advice from someone and take that advice. But like you said, where would you be today if 15 years ago you wouldn't have started the blog? Would you be doing this today? Would you be doing
Yeah.
something you're passionate about? And I'd like to, and I share that with my kiddos all the time. If you're my daughter who's in middle school now, if there's something you want to do, then go after it. And your friends don't want to do it, that's okay, because if you're doing what you like to do.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
probably more detail than you wanted on that question, but
No, that's okay. That's a great conversation. So we enjoy that. Very good. Well, it's great been having you here. I always like, because it's my show, I get to end with plugging some of the things that we do. So for those of you who will be at PLMA in Chicago in November, on that Monday night, the 13th, we have a cocktail party. Basically, come network, meet everybody. It's in basically a beer hall across the street from the Rosemont. So it's not too far. And it's just a great way to unwind after you've been walking the show and be able to network and talk to some folks. You can go to velocityinstitute.org and register for it. Tickets are available for free. So please join us. And then in December, we will have our annual State of the Industry virtual summit. So we'll have about a 2-hour event where we'll talk about where the industry is and where we're going, with Circana and Damon and a few other retailers. So that'll be exciting. So please, absolutely free, go register. You can watch that as well. Thank you very much, Dean.
thank you. And we look forward. I think we'll see you at PLMA. So I look forward to seeing you soon.